Hi, everybody. It's Susan again, and this time I'm here with the Mercury retrograde that's coming up on the 1st of April, which is Monday, Easter Monday for those who celebrate Easter. Happy Easter. I just wanted to touch on a few of the themes that I see in the Mercury retrograde. It's certainly not anything to fear. Good to pay attention to certain things, but certainly not to worry about anything. We have enough to worry about as it is. Mercury retrograde happens 3 to 4 times a year, depending on the year, how it overlaps with the calendar year. And so it's not unusual. And about a third of the time throughout the year, Mercury is retrograde. So it's again, it's not something to worry about, but it's definitely something you can work with and use to your advantage. So it's happening just a week or so before, in fact, exactly a week before the eclipse. I've already done a video on the eclipse, but I will touch on it again in a general sense. So if you want to see your sign by sign appreciation for the video, the interpretations are there in, I think, a video I did 2 weeks ago. And you can have a look at that. And you might want to pair that with the lunar eclipse video if you didn't see that, the lunar eclipse that was happening in Libra just last Monday, which was the 25th of March. And they're like bookends. So it's good to have a sense of what both of those are doing and how we can be affected by both and how you can plan around both as well. So let's see. So there's a couple of really interesting things. I just wanted to leave this chart as it is. Normally, as you know, I don't usually use the ascendant descendant because it's not relevant for everyone. This is universal time. I always use the London time or the Greenwich Mean Time because everybody's coming from all over the world. So either if you're ahead of London time, then you add your time, and if you're behind, then you subtract your time, and you'll find it. But in any event, it's going to be happening on the 1st of April, Universal Time. That'll be the 2nd of April for those of you in Asia, East Asia, South Asia, East Asia, Australasia. And then certainly it'll be the 1st of April from Greenwich Mean Time and to the west. Actually, in Europe as well, technically it will already be overnight, midnight. It'll be about one. What will it be? Yeah, it'll be about 1:15 in Europe, but you'll be sleeping. You should be sleeping. You get to bed. And so it doesn't really matter when the ingress is. It's just that I use it as a kind of an event chart. It's like a natal chart for this Mercury ingress, or rather Mercury retrograde. And it gives us a feeling for the quality of things that we should look out for during a retrograde, or this particular one at least. So I did leave the ascendant because I thought it was very interesting how it lined up with a couple of other features. For example, the Uranus on the descendant, and also how Saturn is really strongly opposing the midheaven. So right on the descent, on the IC, on the Imam Chalai, and it's opposing the midheaven, the medium Chalai, which we rarely say, but there you go. So that opposition is very interesting. It's always a sense of being blocked by something, or a sense of something holding us back. And indeed, that's anyway one of the meanings of a Mercury retrograde. And in fact, Mercury is the ruler of that midheaven, and that's what struck me the most. So it's not just the fact that Saturn is exactly opposing within less than a degree, but it's also opposing the midheaven in the rulership of a retrograde Mercury. We also have this at a time where we've got an exalted Venus, which is conjunct Neptune. And so, again, that's already something quite interesting. It's within 2 degrees. A lot of these conjunctions are quite tight at this moment. We're getting tighter with the Jupiter Uranus. We're still about 3.5-ish degrees away from a conjunction, but that's really tight, and it's definitely already in play in April. So all through April, really already now, if you're watching this even in the end of March, it's definitely in play. It's just that it keeps tightening up as we get through April. So watch out for those effects already of that Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. But this Venus and Neptune conjunction is a very interesting feature, I think, of this Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is retrograding at 27 degrees, 13 minutes of Aries, and it is semi-sextile, which I always take note of semi-sextiles and sesqui-squares, semi-squares, because they really speak loudly when events are happening around us. And this one is a semi-sextile to Neptune. And of course, Venus is exalted in Pisces. And so we can have a kind of a quality, along with, because we've got Venus Neptune conjoined, this kind of romantic, idealized, or fantasized quality around things. And then when we put that together with a semi-sextile between Neptune and Mercury, we come back to that kind of ongoing theme that we've been having for quite some time now, where we have this feeling of not being sure of what is being said, or not being sure of what we're hearing, or even what we're seeing for that matter. There's a lack of certainty around communication. And this is just a really strong way of seeing that. We also have in Pisces, we still have Saturn and Mars. Mars is going to be conjoined by Saturn, rather, is going to be conjoined by Mars as Mars approaches Saturn on the 10th of April, and that's just 2 days after the eclipse. And I'll speak about that again as we refer to the eclipse. But just now that we've got this stellium in Pisces and another stellium in Aries, we really want to pay attention to whether our actions and our impulses are informed correctly. Are they informed based on things that we can rely upon, information or communication, what we see, what we hear, what we say? Is it reliable? I am a Pisces stellium myself. I happen to have my Sun, my Saturn, my Mars, my Mercury, and even Chiron in Pisces. Now, so I can speak from an authoritative position that there are times when things are not that clear, and it's not clear to the person that it's not clear. We can live, and I say we advisedly can live in a realm of wishful thinking. And this is very important at this moment when we have Neptune in that sign as well, especially in that semi-sextile to Mercury. Some of my biggest mishaps have been from moments where I have gone through, rather than observing things with care and trusting my inner intuition, my body, what the messages of my body were screaming at me, I would continue along a really unhelpful path, based on wishful thinking, based on things will get better, things will be better, things are okay, it's okay, they mean well, they said the thing. And I want you to keep in mind, because most of you who are watching this are in an election year, since most of the planet is in an election year, that what you are hearing is often going to be influenced by what somebody else wants from you. And this is a part of this Mercury retrograde, which I think we need to think of as a seeding moment because of this eclipse energy that's coming a week later. It's a seeding moment for much of the rest of the year, and even for a couple of years going forward, because this Mercury retrograde is part of the eclipse energy. And at that point, which we'll see in a moment, the Mercury is backing up into Aries, which creates chaos and confusion. And Aries has been a big part of why we have been living in a lot of chaos and confusion, as she and Pluto were in a square to each other for a couple of years, 2020, 2021, but technically ongoingly even until 2023. So yeah, so that's one of the first things I want you to think about is, am I being guided correctly, both from the inside and from the outside? So it's important to really settle in, get into your body, get into a point of reference where you recognize that sometimes other people are confused as well, and they're not misguiding you deliberately or with any evil intent, but rather that they don't know. it's that famous blind leading the blind. So be careful, because we are in this very big era of the blind leading the blind, what is also known as the Kali Yuga. And so this is actually just a kind of a fractal of what we're experiencing overall. Right. And so another thing that's interesting is, because of this Mercury retrograde, and many of the new impulses that are coming along with this eclipse, we may have a sense that we're not able to fully realize what we want to do. So it's not that we shouldn't necessarily do something, and especially if something is ongoing. Like, for example, I have taken some days off, almost 2 weeks off of seeing clients, so that I can finally get down to really writing my book. And I've started it. I've got a big chunk of it, kind of, well, I can't say a big chunk. I've got well, yeah, it's a big chunk. Let's go. It's a big chunk of the book that's done, but there's a lot of revising that I need to do, and I'm translating, so it requires a certain finesse, because there's a specific meaning behind the words. So even though I'm using AI, very finger on the pulse, I am also I have to do a lot on my own, and this is the perfect way of using a Mercury retrograde. And so this is something, and Mercury, this Aries happens to be my 10th house, so this is very much in line with what I need to be doing now, what I'm supposed to be doing. Wherever Aries is for you is where you need to be putting a lot of your attention, and revising or doing or renovating or improving on, researching, all the rewords, whatever it is that is represented by that house. And so go again, when you want to look for yourself, if you're not sure, check out my eclipse video that I did in, let's say 2 weeks ago, middle of March. And that video will also talk about this Mercury retrograde, but here we're just talking in a general way. Right, so use that Mercury retrograde to your advantage, and do something with it that feels like you're creating something, or that you're fixing something, or that you're revising something, so that later on things will start to take shape in a direction that you want to keep going. So basically, it's not to say you can't start anything, but don't start anything that's completely fresh or new that you've never tried before, because often that doesn't work out so well. And the energy of Aries is quite impulsive. And especially as we have a lot of energy there with the North Node coming up, also the Sun rather coming up to meet the North Node just in 3-4 days after. So like the 4th, I think, of April, the North Node and the Sun conjunct, which creates a kind of a feeling of everything all the time, like just lots of stuff going on. It's a very dynamic energy. It's a very powerful energy. It is good for starting something, but starting something advisedly, in a way that you have the sense that whatever it is probably going to have to be reviewed. So you can tentatively start something, or you can, for example, get a feeling that you're ready to just do a test run, but not completely or fully put it out there, whatever the thing is. It's not an easy energy to start a relationship on, because that can also produce some false starts. But again, we don't choose when we fall in love, so don't lock yourself away. But that Neptune Venus can also cause some havoc as well, because it can be over idealized or over romanticized love at this time. What else did I want to say here about this? So the Mercury retrograde it can be helpful, it can be very useful, especially if you are working regularly with things that need to be gone over, or if you're doing inventory, or if you're doing accounting, bookkeeping, and this kind of thing. Go over and check for mistakes. And you can really benefit from that. And then when Mercury is retrograde from the 1st or the 2nd, depending on where you are, of April, and then it will station again to go direct on the 25th of April. And at that point, it is really going slow at that point. So around that point of, say, 2021 through the 25th, Mercury will be really, really slow. It's also really slow right now it does slow down because it's only appearing to go backwards. It's slowing down because it looks like it's stopping to turn around, although it's just because of this kind of elliptical orbit that it has, the way that we see planets coming from the Earth, from our viewpoint. But when it comes back, it will arrive at the point where the North Node is now. So it will actually be stationing at 15 degrees and 58 minutes of Aries on the 25th. And that is also the point, almost 16 degrees. It's also the point where we had Chiron and the North Node conjoin in February. And so you might find that at this time in April, through the month of April, things are coming back that we've been reviewing since February and even earlier, because the Chiron North Node were closing in on conjunction for much of that time. And so there is something here that is very much connected to this Chiron. Chiron is part of this big story of 2024 because it is, for the most part, a part of each eclipse that we have in 2024 in some form or another, particularly in this spring, or what in the Northern Hemisphere is spring. And so healing our self-identity. I did another video about that Chiron, so watch that one if you aren't sure. And have a sense of what it is that you need to overcome or get over, if you want to say it that way. What do you need to get over? Get over yourself, maybe. Get over fear, get over a sense of inadequacy, get over a sense of not being able to figure out what is the direction of your life. So this North Node, especially as the sun approaches, where it will this week, and then next week where the sun and the moon come together with Chiron at 19 degrees 24 minutes. This is very much an invitation over the next 10 days or 2 weeks to really understand, what do I want from my life, and how am I messing it up? How am I causing havoc in my own plans? I also want to emphasize that this can be a very difficult time. It is a very difficult time for many people. A lot of my clients are going through unbelievable things. I just find human resilience just truly extraordinary when I hear people's stories. And so we also want to have a sense of never, ever, ever giving up on ourselves. So there are times when the world is going to be falling around our feet. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going wrong in many cases, in a lot of our social structures and our political structures. But never lose faith in yourself. Never ever give up on yourself. And as I was thinking about these things, I was thinking about Peter Gabriel. When I was in high school, I was plugged into my Walkman every day, and Peter Gabriel was huge in those days. That was the 80s, and one of his songs that I used to play over and over, and in those days you had to rewind the cassette over and over again. It was "Don't Give Up" with the divine Kate Bush, and that was a song that he wrote in the Thatcherite days of the early 80s, where there was just enormous despair in the UK, enormous despair. Mines were being closed, coal mines were being closed, unions were being busted everywhere. That included in North America as well, and perhaps other places around the world. I wasn't so aware at that time. But people were in despair, and they were feeling sad and betrayed and lonely and discouraged. And this is something that you want to understand. People have overcome again and again and again throughout humanity. People have overcome really trying times. So I'll put a link to that. I'll find it in a YouTube video. I'll put a link to that song for the 2 or 3 of you who may not know it. So yeah, it's a great song. It's an absolutely beautiful song because it's poignant and heartfelt, and it was written for a specific reason. It was written for a cause. It wasn't just something that was written sort of, as a fantastical musical kind of exercise. It was really an anthem in some ways, although it's not an anthem style of music. But So I want you to feel that, because there is always hope. There is always something that you can move forward in every circumstance, in every situation. And sometimes it's worth remembering that the best way to improve a situation is to do nothing. And that's also something that I think is really advisable at this time. This energy is fast moving, it's intense, it's energy that has us kind of confused at times, because there's so much change and so many things happening that are quite monumental at so many different in so many different ways around the world. And yet we personally, we need to slow down. And I think this Mercury retrograde can be a really wonderful way to, even if you're not sure what to do, to at least remind yourself to slow down, just even to the point that you're deciding, I'm going to breathe more slowly, I'll breathe slower, I will take my time to do more things, to do fewer things, but slower and better, and to have a sense that you're able to pick up later, because you will be able to pick up later. You probably won't feel ready anyway to do anything until Mercury gets moving forward. So after the 25th, but even I would say after the ingress of Mercury into Taurus after the 30th, there we will have a lot of energy behind us. So if you're not in a rush, if things don't need to be done, you might want to just wait and use April consciously as a way to observe and take opportunities based on what you know to be true for you. And don't be led around by the nose. Mars in Pisces, where it will stay for quite some time, it's going to be it can be a feeling again of starting and stopping. And when Mars comes together with Saturn, that also has this feeling of starting and stopping. When I was learning astrology, one of the things that I learned about Mars Saturn conjunctions is that they feel like driving with the handbrake on. And that's really a good way of looking at it, because on the one hand, Mars wants to move forward, but Saturn is saying, we're not ready yet. We have to do this, whatever. We have to do this thing. We have to think about this. Mars in Pisces can be an energy that wavers quite a lot. Again, I'm speaking from experience, where you can be all in at one moment, you can be super enthusiastic, and then it's difficult to find the momentum, or you wonder, why did I think that was so important? Or, you know, it's fundamentally, it's not a competitive energy. Mars in Pisces is not competitive at all. That's one of the reasons why it doesn't function well in Pisces. It's like, yeah, come on, let's just get along, it's fine. And so that's something to bear in mind, because Mars is ruling not only the North Node and then the eclipse of next week, but it's ruling this Mercury retrograde. And so there anyway is going to be some ambivalence around taking action because of that Mars, and also emphasized by the fact that Mercury is retrograding. And so, yeah, so that Mars is, by the way, in Taurus until the 9th of June. So from the 30th of April till the 9th of June, we will have a lot of drive. You know, Mars in Taurus can be really stuck in. It's stubborn and it gets things done. It's determined. So where it has great dignity and a lot of enthusiasm, I'm sorry, I'm not, I shouldn't be saying Taurus. I should be saying Aries. It has great dignity and enthusiasm in Aries, which it rules, and that's from the 30th of April until the 9th of June. And so when Mars goes into its sign of rulership, not, I'm too focused on this Uranus and Jupiter conjunction, so that Mars going into its sign of rulership will pick up the energy where we left off because of the Mercury retrograde and because of the lagging of Mars in Pisces. So I hope that's clear now. I messed up with Taurus. Mars is not going into Taurus until June. It's going to be in Aries from the 30th of April until the 9th of June. So from that point on, so we're looking at the whole month of May plus, where we also then will have the energy of Jupiter changing. Things will shift in a big way. So even if things are not going well for you right now, don't despair. Just allow yourself this opportunity to reflect, to perhaps slow down, to question your motives, question the motives of others for sure, especially in an election year. where you want to pay attention more to what people do rather than what they say. What are they showing you about themselves? What are they revealing about themselves beyond what they're saying? Let me think now. And the other thing is, yeah, we have this combination of Saturn and Mars. Saturn in Pisces also is very helpful for finding better clarity around what you believe, what you have faith in. It's good for finding boundaries, boundaries in all kinds of ways, boundaries with regards to yourself, in terms of Pisces being able to be easily distracted or wanting to switch off. This is a hard planet to live on. And the energy of Pisces is, I don't want to be here. I would rather be anywhere else. Thank you very much. And so it can be very easy to waft away into distractions. And that can be very noble distraction. So many people meditate to avoid responsibility or avoid things. That's not any better than sitting down and listening to music or watching Netflix, in the sense of not being able to be here now. So there are times, obviously, we do want to check out that, for example, sleeping. That's also related to Pisces in the sense of the 12th house energy. But we need to be aware when we're checking out. Drugs and abuse of drugs is also very much connected to Pisces. And Neptune is in Pisces, and that emphasizes that as well. So be careful that you want to stay awake and aware for yourself, for your very own self, for no other reason than that you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself and to love yourself. The sun at the time of this Mercury retrograde is squaring the moon, or rather the moon is coming up to a square to the sun. So the moon is approaching the 12-degree exact square, and that would be within an hour or so of the Mercury retrograde. So that square from the sun to the moon does show that we're conflicted. We're conflicted about what it is that we feel we want to do, what we want to initiate. The sun in Aries wants to initiate, it wants to jump in, it wants to get stuff done. And the moon in Capricorn is perhaps full of doubt, and perhaps even a sense of not really being sure what to change, maybe more conservative, maybe more reticent to start new things or to want to grow and expand. And so this is also something to bear in mind in terms of the energy of the Mercury retrograde. There can be a sense of being disconnected emotionally. Saturn is sextiling, or the moon is coming up to sextile Saturn, more correctly spoken. The moon is coming up to sextile Saturn, again, just an hour or so after, or maybe 2 hours after this ingress. And the moon is ruled by Saturn. And it's difficult to touch on the emotions or empathy or a feeling of depth of connection when the moon is in Capricorn. There's often a need for nurturing with the moon in Capricorn. It's in the opposite sign of its rulership. The moon rules Cancer. And so we can also recognize where we're not clear what it is we need, and we're not able to necessarily give what to other people what they might need. And so again, another reason to take a step back and to recognize that this might be a good time to just slow it down and reflect a little bit more than take action, as much as that Aries energy will want to take action. And there's no harm in taking action. Again, I want to emphasize it's not the end of the world if you take action. It's just to say that it may not pan out the way you want. And also you might have to redo a lot of what you started. You might have, done all kinds of new things and then realize, oh, that was a complete waste of my time. Or it just took me down the wrong path, and now I want to backtrack. And it gets difficult when there's a lot of momentum, including the eclipse behind these things. It's difficult to backtrack. Right, let me just check and see if we're ready to talk about the North Node now. I think I've covered it now. Yeah, the Pisces energy, just again to reiterate, it is idealistic, it's more spiritual, it's much more creative energy. Aries is, let's just get stuff done. Let's do this now, let's move, go on. It's a cardinal energy, it's very dynamic. Again, great energy for feeling inspired and feeling a lot of movement and readiness to go, but not a good time. That's going to be the challenge, is can we hold back at the right time? It's really going to be that fine line between when to strike. Is it time to strike while the iron is hot, or should I just wait and cool it down, or should I heat it up some more? Right. And so let's have a look now. We can always come back if I've forgotten something. Yeah, so I just before I forget, because I might get caught up with the eclipse energy, that on the 11th of April, so after the eclipse, we're going to have Mercury retrograding back into the sun. And that will be at 22 degrees and 32 minutes of Aries. And that will be a day after the moon is going to conjoin Jupiter and Uranus. So on the 10th of April, we have the moon conjoining Jupiter and Uranus. We'll have Mars conjoining Saturn, and we will have Mercury conjoining the sun just the day after. So what I see in this is a really good time to make a commitment to yourself for your own greater good, for your own benefit. The moon will be exalted. The sun is exalted. So the moon is exalted in Taurus. The sun is exalted in Aries. And we will have this wonderful opportunity to do something for yourself, a commitment for yourself, for your greater good, for your personal life goal. What is the goal? That's an Aries word. What is the goal? What do I want to do? And Mars and Saturn is about taking serious action. It's about something that's lasting. It's about a durable, lasting action. And it also can be, because it's in Pisces, an idealistic or a spiritually based action. So it's something that you believe in. And again, this may not pan out fully until the end of April, when Mars moves into its sign of exaltation, or rather rulership in Aries, and it doesn't matter. So you can still plan, you can still revise, you can still look at all of these things in the, say, 3 weeks ahead, while we've got this Mercury retrograding. It's a little more like 22 or 23 days. It's weird because it's at the end of the first, and then it's at the beginning of the 25th. So it's not quite, it's about 23 days. Right, so that's it. And by the way, that Mercury has been in Aries since the 10th of March. So we're looking at a long slog of a lot of energy around Pisces and Aries. We're really looking at March and April, just absolutely focusing our attention on action grounded in spirituality, or action grounded in idealism, or action grounded in perhaps misunderstanding, confusion, and delusion. I'll just leave it there. All right, let's have a look now at the the total solar eclipse. And here, this eclipse is affecting a lot of people really specifically. Like just off the top, for example, Catherine, who is the Princess of Wales, the future Queen of the United Kingdom, her sun is at 19 degrees of Capricorn, and she is deeply affected, and her rising sign is 19 or 20 degrees of Leo as well. So she's deeply affected by this. So I expect that this period of time will be a monumental shift for her in her healing experience, because we're talking about Chiron, square the sun. That's not easy. So she's been going through whatever she has been going through in a way that must have been really painful for her. It will affect her physically as well. Obviously, her health is compromised. She's got some kind of cancer, but also especially in her role, because the sun represents who we think we are, how we step up in the world, what we consider ourselves to be in terms of our career or our life purpose. So she will be having some quite major changes around this time, and certainly in the next couple of years. So, and there are other people like that, but I just thought she jumps out because her chart is so specific. The 19-degree energy comes through really powerfully through her ascendant and through her sun. I'm going to add something here I don't normally use except in personal charts, but I think it can be really interesting to have a look. So there we go. So I've added the diamond and the part of fortune to this chart because it's exactly conjoining the ascendant of this chart. And that's because of the way that the sun and the moon work together in the natal chart, in the chart in general, how it's calculated. But based on whether it's a day chart or a night chart, there's a slightly different calculation. Anyway, the point is that the part of fortune is where we find the best, well, as it would appear, best fortune, good fortune, best results. But it's not a random thing. It doesn't kind of land in your lap. It still requires effort and some kind of contribution on your part. And this part of spirit, it's this little thing here. This is part of fortune. This is part of spirit. They're on either side of the ascendant. And the part of spirit is also known as the daimon. And that is very much what we are gifted, or what we can take through what is given as if it's in a natal chart, for example, it's what we have a talent for. And what we also can bring to the world as bringing benefit. Now, notice that this is in the first house. I'm using this chart as an example. It's the Greenwich Mean Time again. I always use that because it's that neutral time. It's the universal time on the 8th of April, where the total solar eclipse is. And in the Greenwich Mean Time zone in UTC, it's at 18:17, so 17 minutes past 6 in the evening. And here we have in the first house of this chart a number of things. We have Lilith, where we're perhaps over concerned with how we come across, or what other people might be thinking, or what other people are doing to our own detriment, because that's in opposition to Venus that is ruling this first house. But then we have this part of fortune, which represents what is bringing good fortune. And we have the diamond on the other side of the ascendant. So hugging the ascendant really closely, almost exact. And then, of course, we have the south node, which is just 10 arc minutes or so, 12 arc minutes away from all of that. The way I see this is that we are going to benefit immensely from understanding how we can let go of a way that we are being in a relationship, in one or all relationships, in our way of being in terms of harmony and justice, and reaching out to other people. In our you see that Lilith energy, Lilith worrying about what other people think. It's part of what can make us jealous. It can make us competitive, and working against each other rather than working with each other. And this, I find, one of these more sort of hidden gems, a hidden message of our astrology, which is to say, if you're looking for all of these things, if you're looking for harmony, you can have it. It's available to you. The planet, the stars, the sun, everything's aligning so that this is available to you, but you have to do something about it. Part of what you have to do is you have to let go. You have to let go of a way of being in relationships. You have to let go of ideas around what creates harmony, what doesn't. You have to let go of behavior that may or may not create harmony. And Venus in Aries is actually quite a selfish energy, very impulsive, lots of fun to be around, great company, very enthusiastic and inspiring. But let's focus. She's focused on herself. And what we're looking at here is really something that says we can question this, all of it. We have to question this behavior so that something new can come up in that relationship sector, but also based on something that works for us. We're never separate from the other. You're not separate from your partner. You're not separate from your neighbor. You're not separate from your dog. We are not separate from the trees around us. We're never separate. We're in relationship to everything, all of life. We're in relationship to ourself. And this is, I think, very powerfully what Chiron is pointing out to us here. Our relationship to ourself is unhealthy. Our relationship to the idea of self is unhealthy. From a spiritual point of view, the overemphasis on me as a separate identity, as a separate thing, whether that be through some kind of narcissistic tendency or from some victim complex or whatever the thing is, the overemphasis is detrimental to our well-being. And where we will find our joy and our greatest sense of achievement and our greatest sense of happiness and the blessings that will rain down from that is coming from how we operate and how we let go of ways of operating that are unhelpful, and how we put ourselves into a situation where we're now regenerating relationship. We are regenerating through that Mercury retrograde, even rethinking, reviewing, analyzing in a new way how we are in love and war, how we are in relationships, how we are taking action based on our principles of fairness and justice. So that you can extrapolate out into the world and certainly keep that for yourself in terms of your own life. I think that's all I wanted to say. I do want to emphasize that that we are in a period of a lot of change. I will come back with another video which will be about that, the conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus, because it's just a couple of days also before the full moon that follows this new moon, which is an eclipse, and that'll just be a bog standard full moon, except that everything has just come from that. So we will then have a beautiful full moon that we can explore and kind of see what happened, catch up with each other to see what happened. But nonetheless, the next couple of weeks are a real gift. It's an opportunity for us to really dig deep, because we're in crunch times, and we're in a time where there are people who really do not understand how we are all connected. And we must never lose sight of that. And we must also never lose sight of how we are already an important facet of life itself, that we are one piece of a very important big puzzle, and that piece is inherent to the puzzle. You're not dispensable. You absolutely mean something to this larger context that we live in. And so never, ever, ever give up on yourself. Never give up on your absolute worthiness to be here. If you were born, you're worthy. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt in my mind. And a lot of what I do and see in people's charts, when I'm dealing with people who are in really challenging situations or who have lived through really challenging situations, we can see that it's coming through generations of similar trauma. And so what you're living through is not only your story. It's not all about you. You're not meant to fix it all, and neither are you to blame for it all. We just happen to be here walking this path at the same time. So never give up on yourself. Listen to that song, have a good cry, and I will see you in the next video, where we're looking at things that are really, I think, the most wonderful, uplifting energies of the year. And so the more clearing and the more, let's say, depth you can find, the more intentionality you can find in the next 3 weeks or so, the more you'll be able to reap from the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction coming up on the 21st and 22nd of April. So much love to all of you, and I'll see you in the next video.